Hello, Get Better Faster Nation. I am Dr. Jason Bradley, and along with my co host, the one, the only James Chester, who is joining us today from the beautiful city of Rome, Italy, and our incredible executive producer, Dr. Rachel Bradley, we want to welcome you to another exciting episode of the Get Better Faster podcast. Get Better Faster Nation, get ready, because today we are going straight to the source, the soil, the soul, the garden outside your back door. Our guest today is Kim Lauffer. Kim is an Iowa farmer, an herbalist, and the co-founder of Alternative, a clean skincare and wellness company, along with Burley and Blake Lavender Company, which she built with her husband Blake back in 2013. Kim and Blake have spent the last 13 years turning their rural Iowa farm into a living pharmacy. Lavender, medicinal herbs, flowers, you name it. And they grow it all for one reason, because they know what Big Pharma does not want you to know, that food is the foundation of medicine, and plants growing in your own backyard are more powerful and safer than anything sitting on the pharmacy shelf. Today, we are digging in, literally, on how you can start your own medicinal garden at home. No farm required, no PhD needed, just you, some dirt, and a willingness to take back your health into your own hands. Kim, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I am excited to share what I know today.
Me too.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you here. And as Dr. Jason said, coming in live today from Rome, Italy. And I got two people coming in from my home state of Iowa, something that Dr. Jason didn't let you know, but I grew up in Iowa. So I love that I'm in the farmland with two people that are back in my home state. So Dr. Jason said you started this business with Blake back in 2013. You guys started out with lavender. What was it like starting out with lavender as a crop in Iowa?
Well, okay, to think directly to your question, it wasn't an easy go around the first time. Iowa winters can be harsh. I grew up in the northwest corner of Montana, so a lot of the places that I was reaching out to for information was out of Washington State. And they, oddly enough, like along the coast there, they have more of like an 8 or 9 zone. And so it's a little more tropical there where you wouldn't think that's the case. But a lot of the plants that we were looking into, the stuff that was being recommended, were like, it's not going to survive the Iowa winter. So it wasn't an easy go from the beginning. And even now, some of the plants that we have, like I'll propagate them. And sometimes I'm like, yep, they're doing really well. And then we'll have like half my plants out there died this last winter. And so it's, but I will say, like, we never intended it to be, like, there are lots of really good lavender farms around the state of Iowa, but our goal was never to have it be like that. We didn't want to sell our family farm or where we were living in order to like continue on. And so as far as that goes, it's not been overly easy, but again, I'm like, by choice. We picked the lavender ones we did for medicinal purposes, not necessarily just to make a bunch of money or to have it be a pretty flower we can put in a bouquet. And so that's partly why we've had the struggle we have as far as that question goes. Yeah.
Well, when did you realize that it wasn't just a business, but it was actually medicine?
It actually started that way. So how we got going in this was, so being from Northwest Montana, when I moved to Iowa for college, I got really sick. And after being put on the highest dose of medication that I could be, my mom and dad were like, we're just going to go to the health food store down the street. And then they sent me, they actually bought a machine and silver rods along with distilled water. And they said, here, make your own colloidal silver. And in college, all my friends were like, oh, she's making her snake oils. But it kind of started there. So then that was the initial thing that happened, because everybody was like, oh, she's crazy. But I got better way faster. I mean, I had been on antibiotics for months and it wasn't doing anything. I started the colloidal silver that my parents sent from Montana, and I started feeling better, and it didn't take very long. So then when my husband and I moved from the Des Moines area down to the Creston area, once again, you're in a new cesspool of germs. And I got really sick, and it seemed like I was struggling with allergies, but it just never seemed to get better. And what's fascinating is because I'm from Montana, and I sometimes think this way, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe it was just me. I don't know if being from Montana had anything to do with it, but it was normal for me growing up to be able to identify certain plants. It was just stuff that I was taught by friends, by family. We'd go hiking. we knew what was out there, what you could eat, what you couldn't eat, what you could use, what you couldn't use. And so it seemed normal to me. But when we moved to Creston and I started to get really sick, we started doing some research, and sure enough, lavender actually is really good when you get bronchial infections. And so like I started doing lavender tea and steams, and shocker, I started getting better. And so again, my husband and I think it's probably my brain. My husband's always trying to come up with ways that we can do things together. And at the time I was an event planner. And so it wasn't really family conducive. It wasn't really something that we did it together, but we had 3 little kids, like 3 and under. And so it was a lot. And he and his buddy at work were always trying to come up with ways that my husband could farm. And sure enough, his buddy had found something about a lavender farm. And he's like, you guys should start a lavender farm. And that's really what started it. I was like, well, I have a business brain and I can turn anything into money if I need to, but it's not about the money in this case. And so for him, he was like, well, I want to farm. So let's see what we can do. And again, it just was kind of a curveball of figuring out like, okay, what does this look like? So we had ordered our first, set of plants, got them here, planted them in the ground. But we put them on his dad's farm where we did not live. And although it was very obvious what we were doing, we didn't put anything about not spraying, and we put it at the back of the property where there were no cattle on the other side of the fence. There was no crops, no nothing that should need sprayed. And I don't know I don't think it was intentional, but someone sprayed the fence right there and all of our plants died. And so, well, that's not true. We probably had 50 plants we dug up and brought into town with us. And that was kind of where it all started. It was not an easy going. And then when we got here, we brought all the plants out from in town with us to be out here back in 2018. And then we've slowly expanded, and I don't think we'll get any bigger than we are now. We're just expanding what else we offer.
Dr. J, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah. And just for our listeners today, if we have a little delay, it's only because we're working across 8-hour time zone difference here. So technology is wonderful, and delays happen. But no, I think, Kim, that's an amazing story. And, as I have a few different doctorate degrees. One of them is in naturopathic medicine. And I'm fascinated with the healing power of herbs. I did most of my naturopathic training in nutritional medicine. And the way I practice mostly is finding out what nutritional deficiencies my clients have, and then repleting those nutrients and constructing diets around what they need and all that kind of stuff. But man, botanicals are so powerful. Especially, there's not even especially, they're so powerful in so many ways, whether it be reducing inflammation, augmenting metabolism, helping with brain function. But one of the coolest things about botanicals in my world are I'm going to just use a broad word here, but antimicrobial properties. I don't want to say antibiotic because it's not really just antibacteria. Botanicals, and lavender as one in particular, has antibacterial properties, antifungal properties, anti-yeast properties, antiviral properties. And I think that's just so cool that I don't want to say you stumbled across it, but it makes a lot of sense when you got down to Creston, and then all of a sudden your immune system is saying, hey, and I'm not diagnosing, but possibly you have a very hypervigilant immune system. It's not a bad thing, right? But your immune system's like, holy cow, there's some weird germs around here. There's some weird, bugs and who knows, yeasty beasties and molds and whatever. And so it kicks into gear. And that lavender has a chemical in it called, I might be pronouncing it incorrectly, but I think it's called linalool, which is very, very antimicrobial. And it makes a lot of sense that something like lavender could really help with an immune system. Again, I'm not saying to our listeners, forego the antibiotics. I wouldn't take them. But forego X, Y, and Z conventional medicine treatment, and rely on this other treatment instead. But for so many people, for Kim, am I right? Like centuries, like millennia, even people have relied on this. Am I hitting that right?
Yeah. What I found interesting too, when I did different studies in herbalism, I lean towards more of the Chinese medicine. And mostly because it's funny, I followed a Western herbalist for a while and realized very quickly, that's based on 200 years of information, and it's not incorrect, but I would almost rather study under a Native American who that had been passed down for centuries more than just what we have known, and processing through that. But it's millennia of information that has been known since the creation of the world. And yeah, I agree with you. It's funny because I'm like, I can never remember the proper terms for things, but I also am like, I wouldn't, if somebody used proper terms with me about antiviral or anti this, I probably would not know half of what I needed to. seeing my battery needs to be charged. So I'm going to have to make sure I've got the right cord here. But yeah, the other thing too, when we started looking into, well, okay, what about lavender? I mean, yeah, it's a huge pull, right? Not companies, but people love it. It smells great. There's lots of things to do with it. But again, our biggest thing was like, well, it's for medicine. It's not, I mean, it is all those things, but it was also something like you can use it on infants. That's another aspect that was big for us, because there's a lot of different things, but again, some of it is like, yeah, I wouldn't, like licorice root, I wouldn't use that on everyone because it's going to have a significant impact, and you need to be limited on how long you use that. So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I'll wait for questions to be asked. Yeah.
I'll just say this quickly and I'll pass it over to James. You never hear about anybody overdosing on using lavender. I'm just going to put that out there into the world for us all to think about. James, go ahead, sir.
Keep talking. I can hear you. I'm going to go check the other cord real quick to make sure I've got what I need.
Well, you're right. You're right, Jason. I've never seen people on the streets needing their lavender fix, or homeless because they've had too much lavender or too much licorice root.
Or winding up in the hospital.
You don't see. Yeah, you don't see people coding out on too much herbs.
Yeah, so it's true.
But I'm curious, Kim, as you're plugging in.
Yeah, sorry. I thought I had it all sorted, but apparently I did not.
Back to your alchemy days of doing the colloidal silver, did you actually make your own?
I did. And you know what's crazy? What I loved about that was I literally had it forever, but then, and it was something that there were, I'm trying to remember what size batteries they were. It was something that I'm trying to even think of the health food store. It was their son had basically built it. And it was like the simplest system ever from what I remember. It was literally just a positive and a negative, like voltage that was running through it. You just stick it in distilled water. I mean, it was like the simplest thing. And then I would clean them after I was done. You had it for a certain amount of time, but they went out of business. Oh, it's been decades. I don't even know how long they've been out of business, but they went out of business quite a while ago. And then on top of that, they like their son had built it. I don't even know what I did with it over the years. It's like the battery started to go bad. And I realize it's so dark in here. I'm nervous. My computer is going to die on me. I don't know why. I have all the right cords, but for some reason it's
big pharma, Kim. They don't want us to get like they've hijacked the power.
What is fascinating to me too. And I'm like super excited about picking your brain too, because like I joke about it with friends that I could have 10 different degrees if I didn't have kids and if I wasn't more committed to raising my family than I currently am. That and unlimited money, right? If I had all the money in the world to get all these different degrees, I think I would. But I just find it interesting that, yeah, like you had said, there's so many things that these plants can do for us that I think if people just learned it, it would make a huge difference. Like you can grow lavender on your own. And if you have to replace it after 6 years because it's starting to die, okay, replace it. I mean, you can distill the essential oil at home. You can use it. It's not going to produce a ton, but and the different plants and what they do. I have found though, various greenhouses don't usually list like the specific of the variety, which can make a difference. But again, I'm like, there's no way to test the chemical components ourselves. And so really in the end,
Whoops. I think we had a little power outage. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So we'll give Kim a chance here. Go ahead, James.
Well, let's go back and forth a little bit.
Sure, man.
I'm really curious to ask her about the different climates and what grows best, because she's talking about switching from Montana to the Iowa farmland, and that there's a certain microclimate up on the Washington area that she found out that they were growing better. But I'm really curious to ask her about starting these out in like raised gardens or potter plants. So, I'm really interested in asking her about how to grow these in different areas, and can somebody start out in a kitchen and things like that. Kim, you're back.
I am sorry. I just finally got to the point where I'm like, I don't know why my laptop died. It was literally plugged into the wall, but either way, my phone should hold out. So Here we go. I did
Oh,
hear your
cool.
questions though.
Well, yeah. I'm really curious about like different climates and what's like how you like learn like what grew where and how other people are like because I'm curious and I did a little prep work on today's show and I'm just curious like what grows best and can people start doing this in like little planters in their kitchen on their windowsill? Can they do it and start in the raised garden beds and like how easy it is for somebody to start doing this stuff?
I would say it's pretty simple. I mean, nothing needs to be major scale. In fact, often people will tell me, I'm like, oh, I can never grow what you grow. And I'm like, you can. And you can grow it indoors. Like lavender can be grown indoors. Do I think it's the best indoors? No. But I think everyone would agree anything growing
Mm.
outside in nature is probably going to be better than growing it indoors. But there's huge benefits to having it around. I mean, even just the smell of lavender. And I need to say this because I think I've had a lot of feedback on this over the years, and I'm like, I think it's important. Lavender is something that tends to be polarizing. And it is okay if you don't like it. It's like anything else that our bodies let us know what we like and what we don't like. Sometimes it can be a major reaction, but like I know people that find lavender repulsive, and that I think is normal. I think that's your body telling you like, nope, you don't need to be around that. There are other things that you can find that will work like lavender as a nervine and various other things. So don't I have people that are like, oh, I feel terrible that I even thought that. But when you were talking about it, I thought I should really like this, but I just can't stand it. And that is normal. In all my years of doing this, I almost every time when I've talked to people, they will say, "Yeah, I didn't realize that it was so polarizing." I'm like, yeah, it's not for everyone. But again, like, yes, you can grow it in a planter. In fact, one year I had propagated plants. This was like 2 years ago, and I had so many of them left over. I'd put what I needed to back in the ground, and I had some left over, and I put them in pots, but they were so prolific, I got to the point where I'm like, I'm just letting these die. I had so many plants, I had to just let them go. I even just got rid of
Well,
one last year because I had it in the basement and forgot about it and was like, whoops, that one did die.
well, outside of lavender, what would you say are the top 2 to 3 like herbs that people should be growing?
Well, next on the top of my list was oddly basil. Thinking through the basics of like what I typically use stuff for with my family. So basil is one that I used to keep on the back patio all the time just because I liked having it fresh to cook with, to eat. I mean, it's something that you and most people like basil. But what we discovered, so my husband is a beekeeper, and what we discovered again, and I say we discovered it, but I was kind of like, I couldn't find plantain fast enough. So I grabbed a basil leaf, chewed it up, made a little poultice, and like stuck it on my kid after he got a bee sting. Or maybe it was even myself, I don't remember. But I mean, it was almost immediate. And so it there the and this is the part where my brain always goes dead. I should have had better notes in front of me, but there's whatever chemical constituent it is in basil, it helps pull that out. So I mean
Mm.
it's faster to me than plantain. So I haven't
Wow.
had basil for the last probably 4 years on my back patio and just regular like holy basil, nothing fancy. I mean, there's so many varieties out there. And that's the part where I'm like, I think people get bogged down into the weeds. You go to buy basil and you're like, wait, there's like 7 different kinds I can get. I'm more than that. And so don't get worried about it. Just whatever basil you have is going to be better than nothing. But again, it's easy to cook with. You can dry it. I also sometimes get bogged down in like, well, I don't have a commercial drying system. Well, I'm getting to the point where I need something that large, but like I can just put it out on the counter and let it dry in the sun. It doesn't have to be fancy. So if you're starting at home, you can have basil on hand, aloe vera, grow an aloe plant. They are the hardest thing to kill. They will continue to multiply, but they are good for so much more than just burns. People think that that's the only thing that they're good for. You can use aloe. You can use it in a drink. You can use it for any kind of skin ailment. But again, this is the part where like James, I would love to pick your brain on some of this stuff with your PhDs because I'm like one of the things I have a son who just he seems to have a severe contact dermatitis reaction to certain things and stuff that would normally calm skin down caused an even greater irritation. And so those are the times where I'm like, I know a lot, but when those things fail me, then I'm like, there's more here and I want to dig a little deeper. But like aloe would be that one, basil. One I don't personally care for thyme. Thyme to me is one that I can't stand the taste of it. I can't stand the smell of it. I really am just like, please get it away from me. But that has a lot of benefits to it as well, where you can eat it, you can cook with it. I can tolerate it if it's in food that I'm eating or if somebody's made something for me, but it is not a herb that I enjoy. But like as far as, and I'm trying to even think of some other basic things, the ones that I love to have chamomile on hand. And I love to have calendula on hand. Chamomile is another one of those herbs that like you can pick the flowers off and dry it. You can turn it into a tea. Actually, what a lot of people, like you had mentioned, James, there is like pink eye, conjunctivitis that everybody swears you have to go to the doctor
Mm.
to be able to get prescription for. Twice now, one of my youngest son has come home with pink eye from school, and we have not treated it with antibiotics. We have gotten rid of it by using a combination of aloe vera and chamomile tea. And it's
Mm.
those two things together that you mix enough of the tea together with the aloe vera, but it's the chamomile that has the antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal properties that help with that. Aloe vera does have some drawing properties to it, not a ton, but enough, and it just helps calm down the eye and the irritation. And it takes consistency. I mean, the son I'm referring to, he's 9, and so I'm sending my 9-year-old to school with a little baggie of liquid
Nice.
and like little we used paper towels, just like pieces of paper towels. We could throw them away when he was done, and he just washed his hands really good, and every 2 hours he had to just put that on his eye. But within a day, the pink is gone, the irritation is gone. Within 2 days the infection is gone. And again, I am not a doctor, I don't diagnose things, I have to be very clear about that, but like when my child shows signs of pink eye or conjunctivitis, that's what we do. And so chamomile is another one that's easy to grow in a pot. If you have a window that gets any amount of sunlight, it will grow there. It just takes a little bit of water. Plants have a unique way of showing you what they need and what they don't need. And there's a lot of information on the internet about whether or not it's water or not. And so I usually don't spend a lot of time on that. And then calendula
Mm.
is another one it's an annual, that's an easy to grow. And chamomile and calendula are so pretty. They're just pretty to look at. It's just nice to come home and see something like that on your counter or your windowsill. But it has so many things you can do. You can turn it into salves. You can cook with it. Again, it's another thing when you have cuts and wounds. You can make a poultice. You can chew it up. That's usually what I do, unless it's something that it's going to potentially cause a reaction. I just chew it until you make a nice paste, and then you put it on the wound, and that will help with that as well. But those are kind of my go-tos that I typically will plant every year somewhere around the farm. Uh, I'm hoping this year to get a larger chamomile patch going. They are self-sowing. So if you get a spot outside, a lot of times they'll drop their seeds fast enough to where you can then, they will come back the next year. But that's not always true. I typically pick enough of my flowers off that they don't self-sow because they don't ever get to that point where the seeds are dropping in the soil. So it just depends. Same thing with my calendula. I have to plant that every year.
I love that. What I love that list. We had chamomile, calendula, basil or holy basil, aloe, lavender, thyme. The interesting thing about that list is Rachel and I just planted our bucket garden over the weekend. Our soil is right where we are. We're in town. Our soil is not necessarily the best for growing. So we did a bucket garden, and I think you basically gave our list. We had rosemary, dill, basil, cilantro, some mint and stevia, lemon balm, I think is a fun one.
Yes.
Chamomile. We had some chives in there too. Some old school rhubarb. Some, I don't even know how to say this one. Shishito peppers, marigolds, nasturtiums, and then lavender. And we have a ton of aloe growing around the house as well. So I feel like we're prepped for the apocalypse whenever it comes with our botanicals. I really appreciate that. I have a question. Speaking of water, so lavender. We have our lavender growing in either a bucket, like a bucket garden, or we have them in pots. And I feel like I will say that I think Rachel and I have pretty green thumbs. James has been to our location, our house, and I think we have something like 100, plants around our house, and we keep them alive and treat them well. Lavender, man, is it just us, or does it go through water like crazy? I feel when I'm checking the lavender, unlike my other plants, when I water them, I feel like the soil, I'm being very general here, but I can get away with watering my other plants every couple of weeks or so and checking the soil, and there's moisture there, and maybe a little bit sooner or later, but just kind of watching it. My lavender, I swear, with all the lavender plants we've had in different pots and different arrangements, I can water it, and a couple days later, that soil is dry. Am I doing something wrong? What's going on with the water?
No, what's interesting is lavender actually does not like having wet feet. So it will soak it up quickly, and it's actually very drought tolerant, very drought tolerant. So
Mm.
it can go for a couple of days without water and it will do fine. In fact, I have not even turned the water on my lavender yet, and we had quite the dry spell. Part of the reason we didn't was because our soil retains moisture really well. And so I wait until it is completely bone dry when I stick my finger
Okay.
down into it. I mean, like full finger length. I stick it way down into the ground and I make sure that the soil is dry all the way down before I'll water it again. So it's normal that it's soaking that up. And don't feel bad that it seems like it's dry. You'll know when it needs water. It'll start to dry out around the base. You'll start to notice it, and that's when it's telling you like too much time has passed. I need more water. But they don't like having wet roots. And so actually I tell
Okay.
people a lot of times that when you're mixing it in with a bucket like that, if it's not really well drained, mix in like sand.
Yeah.
And what we did out in where we planted our lavender, we knew we needed not a great farm ground area, because we're like, we're going to truck in all these tons of sand and we're going to mix it into the soil, which most farmers would be like, what are you doing? And that's what we did. We uncovered a section because it didn't seem to do well because the runoff that year. So we uncovered it and cut the part back, and like it's not good soil. Like no one's gonna want to plant anything there because it's mostly sand. Like you dig through it and it's about half and
Mm.
half. And so, but again, like once it starts drying out, I'll water mine like 3 times a week, but well, usually twice a week in the hotter part. Again, mine's in the ground, so it has the ability
Yeah.
to send its roots down deeper. Where in a bucket, you're going to want to stay on top of it more often than that, but it'll tell you what it wants. So if you even check it and stick your finger down into the soil, I mean, full finger length, get it down in there. If it's dry, if it's still a little moist, you could probably give it another day and it'd be fine. But it does not like having wet roots. And so a lot of times it will start to shrivel up if you give it too much water. So no, you're doing
Interesting.
things fine. It's so funny because I was like, yeah, it's probably telling you like, I'm going to soak it up, but you don't need to water me for a couple of days.
Yeah, it's interesting. The other thing last year was okay. So let me back up. We love lavender. We have lavender oils and lavender plants, and we visited lavender farms, and we have lavender cuttings, and I could go lavender, lavender, lavender. I even tried some lavender ice cream, which might sound a little strange, but man, was it good. It was super, super good. It was like I think it was just vanilla bean and lavender, was the ice cream flavor. It was super good. But last year at the end of the season, usually what happens with our herbs, the end of the season, we're done with it. Last year, we decided to bring our lavender inside and just gave it a little home, by a window. And I'll tell you what, all but one plant, everything made it through the winter, and now they're back outside and just really loving it. So I love the idea. This is just me. It's the same kind of thing about our buckets. Not everything, rhubarb is going to go dormant, for the season, things like that. But a lot of these bucket plants or potted medicinal botanical herbs, you can have them outside, get all that awesome sunlight and the fresh water and all of that. And then in the winter, bring them in, even flower, various flowers I'm just amazed at the portability, I guess is what I'm saying, of the garden itself.
Yeah. So I often think I think James, you were the one that asked me about like what they can start indoors. So when I listed all my plants, I was thinking of ones that people could do in an apartment in New York. If they have a window somewhere that gets some kind of sunlight, you usually can do okay. Even grow lights, they're not ideal, but there are things you can do in there. But yes, absolutely. There is stuff you can put in pots, you can bring it in, and you can have it all winter long. You really can. I will say it's not uncommon for lavender to go dormant. So in the wintertime, when I kept them alive in the winter, like I watered them once a month. And that was enough for them because it didn't matter. And they will come back. They will come back once you put them back outside and you start watering them consistently. But it is just interesting how, like, you just gotta, for me, it was like whenever it snowed outside, I would water my lavender. I'm like, oh, and if there wasn't enough snow, I was always like, we're gonna water it again anyway, because I know the plants outside are thirsty and need something, but they again have the ability to dig down into the soil. And so any of these plants, if you can bring them inside, again, you can grow your own lettuce, you can grow, and nasturtium, did you know you can eat that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was like, it's so tasty and it's so good in salads. It also has like, and I'd have to, again, I'm like, I need to refer to my resources because I'm like, but I like it has it's like a bitter quality. So when you eat it,
Oh,
it
nice.
helps your digestive system get
Yeah.
started. And if you've ever picked a flower or one of the leaves and started to chew on it, you would know why, because it gets the digestive juices
It's the
flowing.
juices flowing. Yeah. It sure does.
Yes. And so
Yeah,
it's great in salads. It's great. I mean, it's great as even just to just pop a flower in before you go eat something, and then your body will be ready to digest the food that you eat. But
that's fun.
yeah, I loved your list. I was like, yes, all those are fantastic.
We'd do more if we had the space, I mean, we until recently, and by recently, I guess it's been a few years now. We were out on the lake, Lake McBride in this area. We had a really good setup, a large yard, and I could go on and on. Then we moved back to civilization, and now we live in a suburb of the University of Iowa area. And I mean, it's just a different situation. So we have, like I said, our bucket garden and our potted plants, and I love in suburban life. I mean, I think we maximize what we can do. I have a question just to back up a little bit, and I know you said I'm not a doctor, this and that, but I want to back up because you said something super interesting to me, and I think it was about basil. I believe that you said, besides just the bee stings and things like that, was it the basil that you're using in the eye for conjunctivitis, or did I hear that right?
No, we use chamomile in that.
Chamomile. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Chamomile. That makes sense. I have used eyebright before, and I'm not sure if I've had really good success with my clients over the 2.5 decades plus that I've been doing this. When they get conjunctivitis, of course, from a conventional medicine point of view, they're going to give you some kind of, I call it Lacrolube, and I'm teasing, but something that some kind of petroleum-based gel that's going to have some kind of antibiotic in there. And they've done a lot of studies, for the most part, whether or not you use that or don't use it, the infection kind of sticks around. What I've seen, and again, I'm excited about chamomile because I'll probably tell my clients if this comes up again to try a tincture of eyebright, and I'll change the word tincture here. I'm going to say an infusion. An infusion of eyebright and chamomile. Basically, guys, an infusion, and again, Kim, you're the expert on this. An infusion in my world is just basically making a tea. Like you take the medicinal part of the plant, put it in something that's going to hold it, put it in some hot water, let it steep for a while, and then I just have my clients put that right as like a hot compress right on their eye. Obviously, don't use heat that's going to burn you or anything. And I've seen conjunctivitis turn around in like less than 24 hours. Like, I mean, like just amazing turnaround. So I'm excited to add the chamomile to this as well.
So yes, with that same thing. So what I would tell people too, this is something I should probably preface because I throw these things out there and then I forget there are like some little asterisks there. But like I allow the tea to cool if necessary. So like it's better when it's warm, but I will allow it to cool. So like I would send it to school with my son. It obviously was room temp by the time I got home. We would then throw it out, make another tea. I
Yeah.
essentially would let it go for like a 12-hour period before I then would throw it out and start again.
Yeah.
It will go bad and it will not be good if you put something that's been sitting on your counter at room temp or even if it's been in the fridge. I just am a firm believer in like a little goes a long way and it never hurts to just redo it. These are not really expensive herbs, at least the ones that I'm referring to. You can typically buy an ounce of it dried even, but you can often find it fresh. I did find too, I haven't been into a Whole Foods forever and went with a friend like 4 months ago. I did not realize they sold turmeric, like fresh turmeric. That was
Yeah.
just mind blowing to me. I was like, what? How did I not know this? Anyway, sidetracked, sorry. But yeah, it's a super helpful thing. I will look into the eyebright too, because I was like, yeah, that's another one. And I think for me, it was more, what do I have that my kids don't always love all the things that I use. In fact, it's funny. As soon as they get a sniffle, I'll be like, "We'll go take, pharmacy of stuff that you can go take," and they always just kind of roll their eyes at me. But then if they don't do it, they start getting sick, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm miserable." I'm like, "Well, did you do X, Y, Z?" No.
Our kids,
Then,
when they were younger, we called it Harry Potter medicine, and it did well with them. They'd complain, but they'd get it. But James, go ahead, sir.
Well, it's really cool because you guys are talking a lot about like the DIY product, like do it yourself style methods. And, Dr. Kim, plant lady over there, whipping up stuff in the kitchen and in the herb world. But it sounds like you've also created a business called Alternative.
alternative. Yeah, we just left the E
Yeah.
off for more than
Yeah,
one reason. We toyed with the name for a long time, and honestly, it's
sure.
not. So I chuckle at this because I've talked with Lisa Johnson about this more than once, where I'm like, I am one person, but I feel like I have all these modalities that I operate from. But the one that I like to earn money most from is business advising. So I say that to preface it with, like, when we were working through the name of the company, it was like, this isn't a great company name on one hand, but on the other, it fit exactly what we were wanting. And so that's why we ran with it. But the idea behind it was quite literally to offer an alternative. So when we founded Alternative there as well, it was something where so Burley and Blake Lavender Company, my husband would help me grow the lavender and then I would turn it into products and sell it. And one of the things I quickly realized is I'm like, I don't love making products to sell. I don't love the aspect of selling the products, I should say, in order to make money. And that was kind of what it became. And I knew of Mindy Scarda and that she had a very similar business. And so I just tapped her and said, hey, do you want to come help? Do you want to partner together on this? And it was a wild hair. I'd never spoken to her before, out of the blue called her. And I had originally thought my brand, Blake and I's brand, had enough like recognition that we were like, well, just the shares to you, we'll partner together. But in the course of that conversation, she often would say, whatever you decide, whatever you think is best. And I was like, I didn't bring on a partner so that I could make the decisions and have the final say. Like, I want to partner in this with you together. So we decided we were going to branch it completely off and started Alternative together. And there are times where I am just so thankful. And then there are times where people are like, you should have left it as the Lavender Company. And I see their point. But I also am like, well, but I wanted her to have as much say in this brand as I did, because it was us both joining our companies together. She had Rosebud Botanicals. She had a great following as well. She just didn't have as much brand recognition as we did. But again, that's where we started it. And the idea behind it was to offer alternatives to the mainstream stuff that was out there. And our goal literally is to try and grow it to where, again, if I'd love to do a clinic. I would love to open an herbal clinic. When we first moved here and when we first started doing lavender, and people would ask, like, how'd you get going? And I would tell them, they would look at me like I had two heads. Um, and I realized very quickly, Southwest Iowa is as open to herbal medicine as what I grew up with. And again, in my head, I'm like, I didn't grow up in herbs. Like, my dad was a pastor, my school teacher. We just lived in Northwest sort of thing. And so we ate while we hiked and we knew what we could eat. We went backpacking and so I don't know. It seemed normal to me, but I realized it's not normal to everybody who grew up there. And so it seemed strange to me that people here were so not anti it, but just were like, oh, that sounds great. And honestly, my husband for a long time used to refer to my stuff as snake oils as well. He'd be like, oh, you and your snake oils. And then he got into his late 40s and was like, oh, like, I need to start doing more things with my health, and started researching stuff. And so the running joke in our family is he'll be like, well, in my herbal studies, because I'm the one that's put the money behind my studies in that. And he just has listened to me and then listened to other experts, and he's starting to apply it. And he's found success. The biggest thing for us in all these years, like, we didn't find answers from what I would call traditional medicine, because it's traditional now. We would find answers for that in functional medicine or medicine. And what they would do was not try to get you to come back or become reliant on things. They would educate you so that you knew how they were telling you to take worked, so that you would know how you needed to take it and how to fix it. And so for us, I feel like what I do. So I'm like, again, I'm like, we have an elderberry oxymol. You talked about an infusion, James. Yes. Anything you can steep into tea, into like a hot water, is going to be an infusion. I do a lot of like herbal vinegars. So like my elderberry oxymol, it's an oxymol because it's a combination between an herbal vinegar and honey. And
Mm.
I do it that way because every time I tried to do an elderberry syrup, I was like, well, there's sugar in that. And there's no way to make it without sugar. And I did not love that idea. And if you do it as a tea, as an infusion, and then you add it to honey, doesn't have stability as far as shelf life. But you add it to something that's acidic, like apple cider vinegar. One, you get all the health benefits that come from that. You create a shelf stable product that will last a long period of time. And then on top of it, like, you put those things together and it's at least a little more
Mm.
tolerable. My kids don't love our elderberry oxymol, but they will take it. They know it helps. It's one of the many things we're like, oh, you're not feeling well, take XYZ. And one of the XYZ is we have the elderberry oxymol. We use grapefruit seed extract as well because it works like an herbal antibiotic. And then we're a high dose vitamin C
Mm.
family. And I always throw in vitamin D too. I'm like, you can have too much of that. But typically, especially in Iowa, we're all low in vitamin D. And so we can ramp that up for sure.
Yeah, I will double down on that, Kim. We run a lot of labs on, blood labs on our clients looking for nutritional deficiencies, and everybody is deficient in vitamin D. Not everybody. Let me say it again. Almost everyone is deficient. The people that are not deficient are people that have been watching their labs and are supplementing accordingly. The other thing that I'll just say about vitamin D, and then I have a couple questions for you. Vitamin D is super interesting. It's not just a vitamin; it's a pro-hormone. It's anti-inflammatory. What I mean by pro-hormone, it helps make other hormones, helps with the nervous system. It helps regulate the immune system. I could go on and on. I love vitamin D for people.
Yeah.
I don't think that we get enough. And even people that are supplementing, and again, I'm not telling people to super supplement here. The people that are supplementing, when we run their, they come to us, for the first time, and we're running their baseline labs and creating their blueprint. Even people that are supplementing more often than not, in fact, I would even venture to say 80-85% of the time, they are still deficient in vitamin D. That's how deficient. Magnesium too. I could go on and on. We don't have
Yes.
nutrients. We don't have nutrients like we used to have. I want to go back and just cover a couple of things if I can remember them, because sometimes my goldfish brain doesn't serve me well when it comes to asking questions in real time. Number one, because I get fascinated with what you're saying and I'm listening and I'm like, oh, wait, I want to comment on that. What I like about the apple cider vinegar, and you talked about, using botanical vinegar like ACV. What I like about it is that one of the things that works well with some herbs, as far as making, some type of shelf stable tincture, is alcohol. And what I like about the apple cider vinegar is that, like Rachel and I, now, would I take a tincture made with alcohol? Sure, I would. But would I rather avoid alcohol? Absolutely. I'll speak for Rachel and I, and a little bit for James, but we don't drink, and we haven't drank for years and years and years. If I can avoid putting alcohol in my system, I'd like to avoid putting alcohol in my system. So I love the idea of apple cider vinegar as far as making a tincture. No one's ever said that to me before. I've never heard that before, but it makes perfect sense. And I really appreciate you mentioning that. The other thing that I wanted to, I guess, trail that I wanted to travel down, along the same way, when we're making, and I know that every herb kind of has its own unique preparation method. And I know that you teach some classes in this, or will be offering some classes around this. But as far as, mixing the apple cider vinegar and the herb, is there a ratio that you like to do? Like a 1-to-2, 1-to-4, 1-to-20? What do you like to do?
Well, and that's a really good question. It depends on what I'm working with. And so the one that I use the most is for my elderberry oxymol. That's the herbal vinegar that I use. But a lot of times it's a matter, I like to use mathematical
Mhm.
equations. And so because I think it's the most consistent. Again, my business brain and how I love to advise businesses, I'm like, is this scalable? So yes, I make it for my family, but can I then turn this into something scalable? So which isn't always ideal when you're talking to somebody like, well, how much do I need to put in my jar for this? But I'll do it based on weight a lot of times. And then, so as far as like a 1-to-2, what I would say, and I should probably be careful about this because this is something that we sell now. So I'm always like, oh yes, I just am an open book. I would rather share information with people so that they can use it. But as a small business advisor and then a business owner, I'm like, yeah, you can't give away everything. But like with the herbal vinegars, like typically you're going to fill your jar full, then you're going to pull the apple cider vinegar over the top of it. And so, but I
Oh.
will say, to your point, or you'd mentioned the alcohols. I totally agree with you. There are only a few herbs that you really do have to use an alcohol to draw it out. I had somebody say, I'm like you, I would prefer to not do alcohol tinctures, not because they aren't great. Um, but the hardest part is it then takes forever. Like I know they do vegetable glycerin as well, but it can just take so much time.
Mm.
And from the perspective of like, sometimes people don't have that amount of time, or some of it is like they don't want to wait that long. So um, some of it comes down to that. But like that's the one that I use. So I will fill my jar. So I do with my elderberry oxymol, I actually have a formula that I use on how much herbs I want before I pull the apple cider vinegar over it. But I'm making a gallon of the apple cider vinegar total at a time. And so it's based on weight. So in that case, it's based on what I want each herb to do and how much of that property I want in there. So the majority of what I put in that obviously is the elderberries. But like our oxymol has lavender in it, and it has And of course, I'm going to drop like it has cinnamon and clove and things that would not shock anybody as to why they're in there. And I'd have to think through there's lemon, there's rosemary. And of course, I'm drawing a blank. I make this all the time and I can't think of it, but there's a lot of them in there. And truthfully, I have a giant gallon size jar that I fill it with all my herbs. I put it all in there. A lot of it's dried. I don't use a lot of fresh because there's a lot of water content in that that
Mhm.
then can detract from the overall potency at the end. I was coming up with the wrong word there. And so like I'll use dried herbs. And again, then I just let them sit. I like to let them sit for like 4 to 6 weeks. I don't think they have to sit that long, but that's a personal preference. I like it as potent as possible. And then I just take a ratio of that apple cider. I strain it all. And when that apple cider vinegar is done, I mean, it's purple and it'll stain your fingers. I usually will use gloves when I'm working with it because I get done and it takes me like a week to get my hands not be purple anymore. But that's how that one works. By the time I fill my jar full of herbs, it's pretty full. And I can barely get the full gallon inside of my gallon jar. So it's better if I have a little bit bigger, but it does come down to that. Once you get it in there too, you
Wow.
can kind of mash the herbs down. But depending on the herb, that is how you kind of choose the modality. Cause like marshmallow root to be and I'm trying to remember all my information, but like it can be a difficult one. Like it's not a, if I remember it, you can't extract it out in water. Like an infusion isn't going to be as effective. Neither will vegetable glycerin for a tincture. And so that's one where you're probably going to want to use the alcohol base. So
Yeah.
again, there's such a fine line there, but I tend towards ones that are simpler to use if I can.
I was going to say too, and again, I have training in this, but my training is more knowing the medicinal properties and prescribing things for, various conditions. That said, I have a little training in preparation, but I really rely on geniuses like you to actually make the preparations for us and get it to our clients. My really basic understanding and the way my brain works, to keep it really simple, I've always thought if it's a root, use an alcohol probably, just because they're harder to extract. If it's a leaf or a flower, you can probably get away with. Well, I was going to say the glycerin, but I love the ACV. I'm going to try this out. I love that. I have a question for drying herbs. The way that we do it in our simple life is we will cut what we want to cut and then sometimes hang them upside down or lay them out on a drying rack and just kind of let them dry. But I also know that there are people that are like, oh no, you need to freeze dry. You need to, I don't know. There's drying machines. There's a lot of things that are out there. Tell us a little bit about just preparing the herbs itself for the process.
I'm pretty old school. So I'm always going to hang them to dry.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that like it's a bad thing. I guess I just feel like if, millennia ago, they could dry them that way and that was the simplest way to do it, then why do we need to change the mode? However, with that said, I do know that, when you harvest, how you dry, all of that can have a play in the full chemical constituents that are left when the plant is dried and what you use. And so, like I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in this, but I know when I was studying for herbalism, a lot of what we found was like the reason why there's not a lot of studies out there that can prove that these things work the way they do is because like what you are growing over there in Iowa City versus what I'm growing in Afton, it's the exact same plant. We might even say it has the same soil pH and all of that. But when we go to harvest, there might be like the little, like it might be really high in mine, but really low in yours. And some of that can be with how much rain it got and all the different things. And so it's not always consistent. It's not always the same. And it's difficult to test that when it's just our backyard
Yeah.
or even a small scale farm like ours. Like we don't have acres and acres of lavender. We have like 500 plants. Well, right now we have like 300 plants because we lost a few over the winter. But again, it's like this, there's not a perfect science that can be proven in a repeat process. And that's where people get hung up at times when they're trying to cross over from traditional medicine to current. And with that, I'm trying to remember what you had said about, but yes, the roots, absolutely. I will say there are some roots that you can eat and get a lot of the medicinal purposes out of it. So like dandelion, I mean, you can eat that stuff and it's so good. Like that's one in the springtime. And I have this policy. You had asked if we were an organic farm before, and I'm like, we practice organic. So we use as little chemicals as we possibly can on the farm. But we also have like 11 acres that we are trying to maintain. And we are trying to be respectful of the farm ground around us as well. And so like we're very careful about how we do things. And so my big policy too is like we don't spray the dandelions because that's the first flower that pops up for our bees. But they can get out of control. And so when I'm going out and I'm picking stuff, like we'll use that stuff and eat it. But like there's just, I don't know, there's a lot there. I feel like I've gone off on a rabbit trail now and I'm trying to remember what the original question was. But yes, as far as drying, I just hang stuff to dry it. I like to hang, you can hang it outside. The humidity can cause a problem, I find. So if you're going to hang it outside, I will hang it in the sunlight or where I know it's going to get 12 hours of sun a day. So like I have a particular variety of yarrow that I will hang outside, primarily because it usually has a lot of bugs. So if I've cut it and I've banded it together in a bundle, if I bring it in the house right away and hang it up, there's going to be a bunch of bugs that come in with it. And that's a normal thing. They aren't necessarily bad pests, but I prefer not to have my basement, full of all these extra bugs trying to get out. So I will hang those ones outside on. We have a old style corn crib, and I will hang them outside on that wall where it's going to get at least 12 hours of sun a day. And then those I'll bring in, and you can chop those up and use them. Like lemongrass, you can do the same thing. I do that. I bring my lavender inside. We usually have so much of the lavender. I've not tried to create a space where I can do it outdoors yet. But I just bring it inside because I know then I don't have to worry about the humidity and issues with the moisture staying inside for too long. But yeah, that's how I dry it. I know, again, there's tons of information on the internet. I think it's easy to get overwhelmed. And if you're just starting out, it's hard to be like, well, what do I do? Keep it simple. Grow what you can grow and dry it the simplest way you can. You can literally hang it from your windowsill if there's space for it. Just hang it in your house. And it will dry eventually. And you just wait until you know it's dry, and that's how you move forward. But if you are trying to like scale into something larger, definitely do your research. There's tons of information out there. And my biggest thing, and I don't know how this works with the rest of research, but I always try to disprove my theory. So if I'm like, oh, freeze drying is going to be the best way to handle all of these herbs, I then set out to try and say what's wrong with it. Because ultimately, if you read all these reports about how great it is, you're going to miss the one report that says, here's why it went wrong and what needed to change. And that might be the catalyst of like, oh, here's how I'm going to do this differently than everybody else so that one problem is addressed. And that's how I roll. But I also don't freeze dry anything because I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with a bunch of equipment outside of what I have to have.
I love that answer, and I love keeping it very simple. I want to pass it over to James right away, but I do want to say also for our listeners, there is a lot of research. If you go to pubmed.gov and you look up the research, there's a ton of research that is out there on medicinal herbs and botanicals. There's just a ton. As an example, talk about elderberry. There's a ton of research suggesting that, it has antiviral properties. It shortens the duration of different viral infections like influenza, COVID. I know that when we were all going through the COVID scare, we can comment on that more if we want, but when we were all, in that pandemic situation, elderberry came out, the FDA came out swinging very hard. Like, that's not real. You can't do it. And then all of a sudden, a few years later, we're like, you know what? It really did actually help out with X, Y, and Z regarding COVID. So there's a ton that are out there. But the other thing I want to just make sure that our listeners understand, and they've heard this before, probably from me if they listen to any of our episodes over a course of time, there's just no in natural products. I mean, there might be for the individual or like a company, but as far as like the mass market is making billions of dollars or trillions of dollars off of this idea of like what I'm trying to say is there's not an elderberry syrup, cabal that's out there, trying to trick us into, taking elderberry. I mean, there's just not money in it. And even if there was money in research, which there's not, most of the research that's out there has been done as a labor of love and just trying to understand it by people that really care and really do want to understand, but there's been no big backing with big pharma. So we don't have any large scale studies necessarily. I just want to say that there's problems when we start to talk, and James, this is one of the reasons James doesn't like the word evidence-based medicine, because the evidence that's out there that we're basing things on is funded by pharmaceutical companies doing research. And I'll go so far as to say, if we start to research what gets published in the, whether it's the Lancet or the BMJ or the British Medical Journal, JAMA, New England Journal, all of those, if we start looking at the editors and the past editors that keep leaving these journals, they say the problem they have is that it's pay to play. The only thing that gets published in the medical journals anymore is when a pharmaceutical company comes along and says, hey, we created a chemical. hey, we did our own research, and believe me, they're cherry picking that research. And here's our cherry picked research paper, and we're going to give you millions of dollars to publish this. And then all of a sudden, we're like, trust the science, trust the science. And I'm like, we're trusting somebody's marketing budget. That's all that it is. It's a marketing budget. So evidence-based medicine, I used to be a big evidence-based guy, evidence-based medicine. That's what we practice. That's what we do. Just be careful. I'm telling our listeners, just be careful. We do need research, but you know what? Coming back to Kim, what we were talking about earlier, and then James, I'm passing it right over to you. When we say, hey, traditional Chinese medicine, I'm from Fairfield, Iowa, so Ayurvedic medicine, some of these botanical practices have been around for millennia, thousands of years, not months or a couple of years like big pharma. And again, the safety profile of herbs is remarkably safe. Are there things we need to be careful about? Absolutely. We mentioned licorice earlier. Glycerin and licorice can drive up, blood pressure. So be careful with that stuff. And there's things that I love lobelia as a bronchodilatant, but it'll make you throw up like Ipecac if you do too much of it. I mean, there's things that are out there that we do have to be conscious of, but as far as like really causing problems on the mass scale, there's a reason that we have a government database that tracks side effects from drugs and vaccines, and we have massive amounts of our taxpayer dollars going into those databases to pay people out for their side effects that they're having. I could go on and on about this. We don't have that with herbs. We don't need it because it's overall a very strong safety profile. That's my soliloquy. I'm sure I'll have more. James, I'm going to pass it right over to you, my friend.
Well, I'm listening intently because there's so much good information back and forth between the two of you. And we're talking to a doctor, and we're talking to an herbalist, and we're talking to a farmer. And I love the idea of the fundamentals of what we're discussing today. But I'm also very interested in what Kim's doing for business. And I'm and I think there's a solution here too within the business of what people are looking for and what they're actually getting. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I believe that the medical arena, as Dr. Jason is explaining, they're missing the mark, and they come up with some petrochemical fix. And that's what becomes mainstream. And I think the same thing for the cosmetic world is that's a lot of times backed and pumped by big brands like Procter & Gamble and Johnson & Johnson and different types of big industry money that pumps into like, what was the hair product that was the first essential oil hair product? Like it was like an essential oil, like Herbal Essentials. Like it was like a very old brand now, but it was like one of the first that was ever launched. Was like called Herbal Essentials, I think.
Herbal Essence.
And people trusted that Herbal Essence. But people trust that, and they put that on their shelves. And there was like a race to like get that type of product because it was an alternative. It was something different from Johnson & Johnson's brands. And then we got like brands like Tom's of Maine that creates like really good toothpaste that gets bought up by one of these brands. And then we have other brands like Burt's Bees that was creating really good like kitchen-based products, and then they became like cult classic, and then they got bought out. Are there any businesses out there that you really respect outside of yours that you can model after to help expand?
That's a really good question. And again, my small business advisor brain goes straight to like, yes, and I will gladly list them. What fascinates me with that though, is it does come back to like the marketing aspect. They show up in my news feed on Facebook. They show up in my Instagram. They show up on all these different platforms that I use, even just for scrolling, to enjoy. Because of conversations that I have or things that I'm searching for on my phone and various things like that. And so I always do my research a little deeper to find out, okay, yes, they're marketing it to me because of what I do, but what else can we do with that? But like one of the companies that I've watched for a long time is Rustic Strength. And what's fascinating to me just recently I was watching something where I was looking at video of them in a warehouse, and I was like, I swear it wasn't that long ago that they were just like operating out of their kitchen. And I don't even know how long I've been following them and watching them. But the idea behind what we are doing, and it's so interesting that you said that, because one of the companies that I absolutely loved before I started doing all of this was Caldrea. They got bought out, and then I think it was Johnson and Johnson that bought them out, and within a month of them having bought it out, they let everything that had been done die off, and I can't buy their products anymore. They had the one scent that I loved, and it's still the same scent, but it doesn't smell the same, and it doesn't last as long, and it's not as
Mhm.
high quality. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I can't bring myself to do it as much as I want to. I'm like, I just can't spend money. I'm gonna just try to develop it myself. Rest of Strength is a company that I've watched for a while, because I do a lot of the similar things. So a lot of times I'll be working on a formula. I'm very particular about our formulas, and I know Mindy's the same way. We aren't trying to replicate something that somebody else is already doing. We are trying to take the research and information that we know and turn it into a formula for us. And so a lot of our stuff, from the basic soap that we make all the way up to like our barrier repair cream, is stuff that like we base it on the information that we find and not necessarily on someone else's formula. So as I mentioned, these companies, if there's similar products that we are making to theirs, we've done our research first. Then what I will a lot of times do is be like, okay, companies that I respect and it seems like they're doing well with the products that they have, like what else do they have in theirs, or what do they have? Branch Basics is another one. Theirs is a bigger company, but one of the things that I absolutely love about their company is they're very forthcoming on their website. All these different ingredients, what they're for, how they make it, how they use it. And a lot of companies aren't that honest. They are not that forthcoming with here's what it is. And I think that that's huge. And those are companies that started small and went big. I will say, I think Branch Basics, although they started small, I think they started much larger than what Mindy and I are doing with alternative. But we found our audience is not what we thought. So we got invited to this homestead event out in Ohio last year. And we're all kind of like, yeah, let's do it. We kind of want to take it national. Let's see what we can do. And so we went out there, and we found that the Amish seem to really like our products. They're effective. And they like them. They don't have the reaction that they do with other things. And because there is no like social media marketing that they are even paying attention to, that's how we got connected, because we showed up at a homesteading event that a lot of the community was there for. And so again, I'm looking at these larger companies. I'm like, how do I take it that big? And then I'm like, maybe I'm looking at this wrong, and I just need to market it to the people that are more like us, where I don't, I would love a manufacturing company to make the stuff for me, but I've seen a lot of things where once you get there, there's a lot of oversight that gets missed and things get
Yeah.
changed. So
Well, I think to tie it all together, which I love doing on the show, and I'm really thankful to have you on with the show too, just because it is something that when I came to Dr. Jason with an idea about having a podcast to get people better faster, your concept of what you're doing is like right in the wheelhouse of my love. And I want to give people solutions out there in the world to find pathways to knowledge that they didn't have before, that is bringing them to a new reality that didn't exist in their consciousness before. So a lot of this conversation today makes the hair on my arm stand up, because I get a chance to hear what somebody else is doing to help people get better faster. And that's my first love of this whole show. Obviously, I love working with Rachel and Jason and our team. And I love hosting guests and talking to people about stuff. But this is the essence of why I wanted to create this type of a program, because I want to give people a voice that really what you just said, grassroots marketing. Like you didn't need a social media influencer. You didn't need an ad budget. You just need to create good product that people desire and they don't know where to get it. So I think the conversation today, from the herbs that people can plant in their kitchen to the way that we can extract them, to the drying methods, to the usage and the formulations, I think that it's just what people need to hear in this day and age when everything's so fast paced and people have like the attention span of a gnat. Um, I think that sometimes what this trip that I'm on has taught me is that sometimes you have to slow down. Sometimes you have to get quiet. Sometimes you have to appreciate the subtleties of the world. And you have to appreciate building a product with your hands like you're doing, and getting the stains and figuring out how to clean your hands after a week of being elderberry stained. Like and figuring out how to extract things from the tincture the right way. And a lot of what I'm hearing you talk about is it's a lot of trial and error. And it's like a lot of like, old world wisdom that you're bringing to the forefront in products that you trust for your family and for your network. So I am curious though, because I know Jason's been putting his hand up and I'm going to pass over to him, but I want you to fill me in a little bit. You started this business with your husband. You brought a gal in as a partner. What has it been like for you to run a business with a small crew and to see what's possible if you do ever scale?
I really love that question for more than one reason. Because, again, as a small business advisor, it's so funny how I can literally sit across the table from people and say, this is what we need to do, and here's why. But then when it came to me, it was like, oh, I don't even know. I don't know what to do next. There is a lot of paralysis that happens with small businesses, because you're the one and done. But I started to, when I don't even remember how many years ago it was when I got certified as an exit planning advisor. I then started to recognize things in myself and my husband as we were working on our business, that I was like, I didn't love making products and selling them. That was the part of what we were doing that I didn't love, that we were, because he really didn't have anything to do with that. And I realized I love working with a team of people. That's one of the things that I love doing. I love helping people become the person they want to become and seeing the realities that they want to see. But I also was like, well, I had let one business go, um, and in the right ways. But like, had I known at the time that I could have sold it for a lot of money, I would have done that. But I didn't know. And so I got to this point where I'm like, well, I don't want to get to that same point where I just shut down everything I'm doing because I just want to farm the herbs and just have people come. Um, and so I decided, okay, well, if I were advising my small business, what would I do? Well, again, my husband loves to help me work the land, loves to help me come up with the ways to do this, how to try to work it organically. How do we use the chicken poop to fertilize? How do we use the cattle poop to do this? I mean, and we joke a lot about it, but there is some reality of how we're doing that. I mean, we do, when we scoop out the chicken coops and when we do different things, we are spreading that out to essentially to feed the farm, to feed the ground, to do what we need to. And so like he helps with that. But then there was the product side of making things where like that was just me, and the selling side of things, and that was just me. And I realized that was the same thing with Mindy, the making and the selling of the products. That was what she was doing. And I just thought, well, I'll see if she's interested in working as a team, and figuring this out. And again, as I went through different advising courses, I realized I'm like, really, small businesses often do everything. You wear all the hats because that's what you have to do. But I wanted to offer a service where it was like, I don't have to do that anymore. And so actually, Mindy and I, when we partnered together, it was so much fun. I mean, we would sit in our meetings and talk way longer than we should have about things that both kind of lit our fire about creating things and formulating. And so she's listed on our website as our formulation expert because I do love hitting that over. There are times where I'm working on it and I'm still doing some of that, and I still love that. I geek out on the chemistry. But I realized very quickly organic chemistry is not the same thing as regular chemistry. And it's a much harder to gain information on that, but I still love it. I geek out on it. And so when Mindy and I started working together, and then we brought her daughter on, before we even formed the company, and she became our social media and marketing, because she was like, "You guys need to tell everybody this and this." And Mindy and I are not self promoters, so like I love to share what I know. I love to do that, but I am terrible about my own social media and marketing because I just feel like I'm promoting myself, not necessarily the things that I know and what God has shown me from His world around me, but just I feel like it's a promotion of me, because I have businesses and I want to make money at this, so that I can help my family, and so that I can, again, I'm like, I want to help others. I'd love to do more in other aspects, but I'm like, well, I need money to fund that. And that's something that has to happen. But as far as like the movement through that and then working as a team, the scalability of it, that's something that even now, as I'm going through stuff, we've been implementing stuff that I know needs to happen. One is the documenting our processes, and that is painstaking. It's kind of like all of our formulas have to be written down. Um, and we know that that has to happen. We know that has to take place, and we have it written down, but then it has to be written in such a way where it's not just in Mindy's head and it's not just in my head, that someone else can come in and make this. We're not selling our trade secrets. We're not giving away things that are somehow going to become, they can go out and do this on their own. But there is that reality of being able to, yeah, that's fine. Being able to have it be something where it's not completely dependent on us anymore, where then we can focus on the areas where we want to grow and excel. So maybe it's more product development, and somebody else is making the products that have just my moisturizing soap that I've been making since 2014. Like, I don't need to make that anymore. I'd love to hand that over. So we've been working through that process, and it is slow and it is painstaking. But part of that is she is still teaching full time at Southwestern Community College, and I also am working part time for a friend as well. So we both have jobs that require our time elsewhere. And because we farm and we do all these other things, it is like, well, I say we kind of get to it when we get to it, but that is true. And sometimes I get frustrated because I want the progress to have happened last year. But I love working as a team. So Mindy and I work really well together. Olivia, our third partner in this, she doesn't feel nearly as important, but we keep reminding her, like, we would not be marketing this at all. No one would know we existed if you weren't here. And so she really takes,
Mm.
we send her our information, our knowledge, and I'm like, oh, here's a paper I'm going to write about this. And I send it to her. She's like, it's fantastic. I'll use this for all these podcasts and posts and things like that. And I'm like, oh, great. I just was writing down my notes on the one plant that I had studied. I don't think about it, and I don't know how to then. It's not that I don't know how to. I know how to market it well. I think I get a little irritated with the marketing side of things because I also know when things are being marketed to me. And so I get a little crazy with that because I'm like, I would rather it just be people find me and know that I exist, come to the farm, enjoy what we have. And it's not I found you because, I was talking to a friend about this and then you popped up in my Facebook feed because the algorithms and I understand that's the world that we live in. So I try not to dog on that too much, but I really do love that progression. And my husband has seen the benefit of that too, because when we broke off the product side of things, that's allowed me to focus more on the farm. So, like, we have our own cattle, we have our own pigs, and so we do raise meat that we can sell. We don't have enough of it. Same thing with the chickens. We don't have enough of it consistently enough to have like store. But we have enough that if people wanted to come and buy some, we could sell some to them. We get our cattle inspected when we butcher, and we get our pigs inspected as well, so that we can sell it at retail. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, we just, I don't know. I don't, it's just kind of like, it seems like a normal way of life to me. So then sometimes I forget that this isn't normal for everyone, but it's been good. So, like, we've focused, the shift has swung, and I'll tell you, having Mindy and Olivia on my team, like, I just make the product when I need it right now, and I develop the product when I need to develop it. But there's a team of people that are working together so that we can scale. I have no idea when that will happen, but I know that Mindy and I are both, all three of us, Olivia as well, we're all excited about the opportunity of it. But none of us have the time to put into it just yet.
I'm chomping at the bit. I know Jason has his hand up too. Um, I am excited with your message there. And I also love team. And I also love marketing. I love branding. Jason and I don't get near enough time together to talk about things when it comes to our show. If we ever do talk, we just catch up about life a little bit here and there and kind of share the wins and some of our hard times with each other. But I think that what you're doing with your small team is fascinating to me. I just ask you to really hold on to the truth if you ever do scale and grow this thing out
Yes.
to have like owner operator decision making like at the forefront of 99.9% of what you decide moving forward with any product development or brand or buying into what you guys are doing. Hold position control on that with like white knuckle. Like, do not ever let anybody turn you into like a product that you are ashamed to see that you're buying them and they've lost their way. So I'm also very much into traditionalist methods that you're doing. Stick true to your tenets, stick true to your truth, stick true to your formulations. Have integrity in everything that you do. Like, salt of the earth people deserve salt of the earth people, and real product deserves real people, and real concerns and real needs deserve real heart and soul. And I really believe that talking to you today gives me a lot of faith in people, and it gives me a lot of truth in myself to hear that, because I get to the point where I lambaste the world and I get really pissy, and I talk about like how we've all been bought and sold and how there's no money in healthy people and how the big box medicine like runs families and makes people sick. And I just get pissed off when I hear about the pollution in water and the pollution in air and the things that people spray on crops. Like, I'm one of those like guys that like I put my like fist together as much as I can without punching things. And I get so over the top with like just how polluted and how manipulated we've become with product use and how you can't really trust anything or anyone. So I come back full circle and say, thank you for sharing what you did today. Thank you for being a true human and actually caring about what you do and building a team and loving it. And it's okay that you don't like marketing. It's okay that you don't like selling. But I do believe that people deserve to get the product and they do deserve to know about what you're doing. So kudos to Olivia for stepping in and helping with social stuff. And you're right. I come from a background in chiropractic marketing. The people that I found to be the happiest out there are the referral based businesses, the mom and pop shops that don't rely on event planning. They don't rely on having to live and die by new patients from ads. They have referral based business and they love it. So it sounds like you're more in that method, but I will tell you also, you have to play in both worlds. You have to get into the digital front if you really want to scale this thing and help more people. So sometimes you have to do the scary. You have to do the things that you don't want to do in order to help more people. So that's just my like armchair quarterback for you as a podcast guy that's done a bunch of marketing in my life, and I've helped a lot of businesses with my advice. So that's just me to you as like a sign of approval for what you're doing and a thank you. But I'm going to pass over to Dr. Jason.
Boy, James, thank you so much for that. And yeah, I want to just double down on that, Kim. Thank you for sharing everything today. I have so many more paths. I don't want to call them rabbit holes, but so much that we go down, and we've got like 13 minutes left in the episode. So, I mean, I can already say that if you'd be so kind, we'll have you back on for at least a part 2. Who knows? Maybe a part 10. We'll see. We'll see. You know how we can keep the conversation going. But our executive producer, Dr. Rachel, she wanted me to tell you with exactly what you're talking about. That quoting from Matthew 5:14, you are the light of the world, and a city on the hill cannot be hidden. And I think it's really important because you're doing important work, and you are a bright light on this planet. And I think it's important the work that you're doing, and I think it's good to get the message out. I mean, and so many companies, like James was saying, and we've talked about here, are just kind of squirreled up by big corporations who change the formularies, put in cheaper products. The integrity is lost, and they don't really tell people that these companies are acquired quietly. Investors know, but the companies are acquired quietly, and the general public doesn't know that what used to be a very natural, brand all of a sudden is no longer quite the natural brand they used to think it was. I won't name names, but people can do that research. The other thing about being a light on the hill and marketing, James is completely right. The message deserves to get out. And for our listeners, James doesn't tout himself much with this on the show. James is an expert marketer. He's like P.T. Barnum. He can see the avenue. And I don't want to speak for James, but I know he has something called the $1 Million Call, where on our podcast website, we'll make sure to put a link on that so that if you want to connect with James, you can have that $1 Million Call. Well, he'll sit down and just chat with you about what your vision is and dig into that and connect you with his very extensive network of natural health practitioners, doctors, chiropractors, whatever it happens to be, so that you can start collaborating and you can start growing and you can start scaling. It's just a really cool call. I've been on one, and I just I know there's not a lot of space for that. James is a very, very busy guy, but at the same time, that's something if you're interested in, click on that link. And speaking of social media and our show site, I just want to say, with Olivia, we have our Olivia, which is our Violet. Violet is our younger daughter, and she gets social media in a way that us old people don't really get. And so she's making the reels and the still shots and pumping, what I would say is value, pumping value out there so people know who we are and what our message is. And I'm so glad that Olivia is doing that. But back to you specifically, and we can connect with Olivia on this. Maybe our listeners don't know, but if you go to getbetterfasterpodcast.com, so again, getbetterfasterpodcast.com, every one of our shows has an episode page, and we have transcripts, and we have discussions, and we have thoughts, and there's a lot on the show that's on that website. But one of the things is with Kim, for instance, Kim, what we're going to do is we're going to point people in the direction to connect with you. We're going to do that just for being our guest. We are going to do that. So again, if you guys that are listening want to connect with Kim, whether it's for alternative, whether it's for the lavender business, classes, whatever that is, we're going to have all those links on there. Just go to getbetterfasterpodcast.com and follow the links. It's that simple. So, because we really do want to make it simple. Let's see. I have here's some things I want to chat about next time. We talked about food as the foundation, and we don't have enough time to get into food as a foundation, but my background in nutritional medicine, I'm all about, eat real food, not too much. I'm a meat eater, but I would say that, vegetables have their place too, so just to quote Michael Pollan from Omnivore's Dilemma, eat real food, not too much, and mostly vegetables. I think that's just good advice. Throw some botanicals in there. They're vegetables too. We'll talk about that next time. I want to chat about, what it looks like with this business structure and having the family involved. I mean, James is like my brother. We both lost brothers, and we've just created our extended family by knowing each other. And I love him dearly and would do anything for him. But we are a family business as well. And everybody that's in our families works for this business, or works with this business. So I get it, along with other people too. But I mean, I get it. We're all wearing a lot of hats, and we're all just trying to reach the world and put that message out there. But I would love to chat more about that as well. But the thing that I would love to leave my audience with Thyroid Authority, I would love, I'm just gonna this is a curveball after all of that, and maybe we can dive into this more. But I know that my followers, they are autoimmune people, Hashimoto's, other autoimmunities. They are hypothyroid, sometimes hyperthyroid with Graves. What herbs? This is the question. It's. I'm not trying to be tricky. What herbs would you suggest someone with a thyroid condition, and I know there's different types. There's autoimmunities. There's run-of-the-mill general hypothyroidism. What herbs would you say could be useful for someone with a thyroid condition?
So, and I would love to pick your brain a little bit further. So one of my biggest, I wouldn't call it a blind spot, one of my biggest pitfalls right now is that as much as I know, it's all in there, but it's cobwebby. And I often have to refer to my sources when I get asked a question like that, because I know it, but I'm nervous about offering up anything that I would say for a couple reasons. I know there's different types of thyroid issues. Some of them are hyper, some of them are hypo. And so
Yep.
it kind of depends. I don't even remember who I was talking to today. But we were discussing, some company was touting, there are no hormone disruptors. I'm like, there are hormone disruptors. And so I'm always very cautious with that kind of a comment. So I'm like, I can't pull one out of the top of my head, but I do know that there is, when you are dealing with things like that, where you have a hyper or a hypo, you're going to need to pay attention to it. So it depends on what we're talking about with what are we dealing with on the thyroid side of things. So I'm going to get not confused, I'm going to forget, but if you're talking through, wanting to try and help balance even just the variety of emotions that come around from the hormones being totally out of whack. Golden seal is one that has been proven to be really good for those things. And I'm going to say motherwort, but I'm like,
Yes.
I think there's motherwort. And then the other one that I'm thinking of, I cannot in my.
While you're thinking, I'll just say
the name of it.
motherwort is great from my perspective. A lot of thyroid people, whether they're hyper or hypo, have heart palpitations, rapid heart rate, for different reasons. One could be hyperthyroidism causes that, but on the hypothyroid issue, the heart kind of speeds up to keep the body going. So motherwort is great for tachycardia, high heart rate. Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
And anxiety.
And
while we're at it.
valerian. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And valerian is a good one. The other one that I tend to like, and it depends on what you're dealing with, but ashwagandha is another one that I like, is a staple in my use. But I also, again, I use supplements with that too. So I take one that's an estro balance that has, it helps your body flush out all of the estrogen that's coming in that you just can't help it. It's environmental. Sometimes it's through food. It's in just about everything that we eat, it seems like. And so it helps your body identify what is bad and flush it from the system.
Yes.
But that is something that, but again, I'm like, I always struggle with those questions because I'm like, oh man, if I don't really know what the true struggle is, I don't want to say like, here's what you should take. Because like you said, like motherwort's one that you can use for both sides, but like, oh, I get real nervous about those things. And I think part of that is practice. I don't have a clinical practice yet. I'd like to get there. That's one of the things that Alternative wants to move towards, to where then I can start practicing in a clinic. Because then I'm seeing these things, I'm getting asked these questions, and I'm not only just refresh myself, but then using it regularly and can speak to like people that I've worked with in the past. And I have, but never in a formal capacity. It's always just been friends calling and asking. And then I don't feel so intimidated by offering that information, but it's not something that I typically get paid to share. And so that's why I'm always like, oh, I get real nervous about that one because I just haven't practiced it enough. But those are the
Kim,
ones that are my go-to, like, hey, here's where I would go.
you did great. You did great there. And I think there's a lot that we could dig into, and I'll just plant that seed for next time. But the other thing that I love about your answer, and I'm gonna pass it right over to James. The other thing that I love about your answer is that there are, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I won't name names, but there's a number of, I don't want to call them herbalists, but people that, you know, might be kind of in the same kind of category, or even in functional medicine, where they say things like, oh, you've got hypothyroidism, this is what you need. Oh, you've got, you know, whatever it is, this is what you need. But what I like about your perspective is it's the same perspective that Dr. Rachel and I have developed over the last 2.5+ decades in clinical practice, on the front lines, in the trenches, working with thousands of patients from all around the world, is that the big question is, what's the cause? I mean, why does somebody have hypothyroidism? Why does somebody have hyperthyroidism? You know, why does somebody have Crohn's? Why does somebody have rheumatoid arthritis? Why does somebody have depression? I mean, depending on, there's so many causes or potential causes, and there could be more than one. So I think, you know, from a clinician's point of view, one of my few gifts that and talents that God gave me is that I can recognize patterns. I'm really good at looking at labs and chemistry and understanding people's chemistry very, very quickly, and understanding what needs to get out of the system, what needs to be put back in the system. And I love your answer, because your answer is, let's figure out what the problem is, and then we'll address that. The other thing that I'll say, and then I'll pass it right over to James for some semi-closing remarks. The other thing that I'll say is, I was just, well, by the time this show comes out, it'll be a number of months ago. But I was one of the key speakers at the Great Prairie Conference here in the Midwest. And I spoke on thyroid, as you would expect. And my whole point of my foundations of thyroid endocrinology and the new functional thyroid endocrinology was that it's probably not the thyroid. And it's funny, because I had, you know, a couple hundred doctors in the room that were like, what are you going to do for thyroid? Here comes this thyroid expert. And I'm like, guess what? It's probably not the thyroid. It's probably the immune system. It's probably stress. It's probably the adrenals. It's probably too much estrogen, probably too much insulin. I mean, I went down the checklist of like, it's all of these other things that genuinely affect the brain talking to the thyroid, the body talking to the brain, the thyroid producing enough hormone or not, the thyroid converting that hormone, you know, into the active version, and then, like you said, metabolizing it and excreting it from the body, what we need. It ends up being a lot more complex. And I think this is where I hope to God, and I pray for this, that this is where conventional medicine is going. Although I'll tell you what, I also have my doubts in this, but I hope that rather than, oh, you've got hypothyroidism, here is some levothyroxine, Tirosint, NP thyroid, Westroid, Natrothyroid. I mean, whatever the heck drug of the day they're going to put people on, that the pharmaceutical rep just went in and like shared with them that's going to solve everything. You know, or you've got hyperthyroidism. Here's some methimazole to basically kill your thyroid and shut down your thyroid. Oh, you've got an autoimmunity or nodules or whatever that happens to be. Let's just cut your thyroid out and then throw you on the drug of the day that the pharmacy rep just came in and told me about. I hope to God we're going to, in the near future, I want to pretend it's going to be 5-10 years. It'll be decades. But I hope that we move back to a rationale that just asks not just what the problem is, but why we have the problem to begin with. And I think that there's a lot of factors that are socio-environmental. There's a lot of chemistry. There's the gut. Like I said, there's all these surrounding organs, at least in my world with thyroid. And I think I left 200 doctors, not just, I don't mean confused. I think they got it, but I think they expected having a one cause, one cure type of situation. Yeah. And it ended up being multiple causes and multiple ways of intervening. And even with the same cause, there's multiple ways to intervene on that one thing anyway. And it became, I got a lot of glazed looks that were like, well, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, you better learn your, if you're going to, what I left them with was, if you're going to be practicing thyroid, you better know everything. and be the best ologist of all the ologies, because all of the systems come into play with thyroid function. So I loved your answer, even though you hedged a little bit. Everything that you said was rock star. Ashwagandha, motherwort. I mean, we could go on and on those things. I mean, yes. I
List
100%
is
believe.
long.
Yeah, it's a long list, but maybe we can dive more into that and the function. And that's what I want to do, but there's so much more we could chat about. I know we're out of time. I want to pass it over to James, but before I do, Kim, I just want to say thank you again. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing what you shared. Again, for our listeners, head over to the podcast website, getbetterfasterpodcast.com. Check out all the links to Kim and Blake and what they're doing with Alternative, what they're doing at their farm, the lavender farm, the products they have, the classes they have. I mean, knowledge is power, knowledge is the beginning. Go get some, connect with people like Kim who are going to teach you what you need to know so that you can have health sovereignty, so you can have health freedom and not outsource to other people. Kim, I just really appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to part 2.
Thanks, me too.
Kim, one last question for you. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
If you could hand our Get Better Faster Nation one assignment this week, one single step that they could take to reconnect with the healing power of plants, what would you ask them to do?
Would ask them to go and get plants. If you're not sure which ones you like or would want to try, I mean, if you don't have space, you can always do something inside, but sometimes you can go down to Menards or Lowe's or whatever your green, and I mean, those are the big ones, right? Those are the big box stores that are all over the US, but just go to a greenhouse and start looking for plants that you can grow indoors or that you can eat. Some of the ones that we've mentioned, and just smell them, touch them, feel them, have an idea of which one, and then just pick one. I think it's a really daunting task. I mean, again, we've listed many different plants, and most of them you can grow. I mean, ashwagandha is grown, obviously. I wish I could grow it here, but haven't been successful so far. But like, you can grow it. So then you just have to decide, just go and check it out. Which ones do you want, and start somewhere. Don't get overwhelmed by the information.
Yes.
Just decide if you like the smell of lavender, start there. Or if you like chamomile tea, start there. Like, start somewhere where you're gonna use it, not just as a pretty plant in your house, but it's gonna have a purpose behind it. Because it's easy, again, to have plants all over the place, but what's the purpose of it? It's not just to look nice. You can
Well,
use it, you can eat it.
one of the best advices I've ever been given is you don't have to get it right, but you have to get it going.
Oh, that's
And
great.
I think
Yes.
and I think that's what you said.
Taste it. Like,
You
I
don't-
don't
you
care
don't
for
have-
the flavor of lavender tea, but like, I do everything else lavender and I'll drink it. I just don't love the flavor of it. But you got to start somewhere. You got to know.
Well, I want to thank you as a closing remark and say thanks for bringing medicine of the soil into the conversation and letting people know that they can do it themselves and that they can work with you also. And to our Get Better Faster Nation, you gave them a blueprint for taking their health back one plant at a time. Like you said, go down to your Menards, go to your Lowe's, go to your Home Depot, and just buy one. Get to touch it, get to understand it, get to start experiencing something real outside of yourself, something natural, something botanical, something real, something that's a plant. Like, touch the earth a little bit, guys. And to our GBF Nation, if this episode hit you home in your home, head over to getbetterfasterpodcast.com and follow the links to all of everything that Kim and Blake are doing with their lavender awesomeness. And make sure you follow the farm so you can catch her plant sales if you live in Iowa, and her fresh herb drops and the medicinal plant classes she has coming rolling out soon. She'll even tell you how to dry them, I think.
Yes.
And to you all, our Get Better Faster Nation, thank you for listening and for your continued support. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode and get all the behind the scenes action we've got coming your way. We get asked all the time, as Dr. Jason was talking about at the end there, how can he help you with his incredible functional medicine team at Thyroid Authority? Just click the link at getbetterfasterpodcast.com and we'll get you guys connected. And like I always say, we've got more incredible guests lined up who are going to blow your mind with real solutions for reclaiming your health, your happiness, and your life. And once again, remember, nobody is coming to save you, but solutions like Kim's offers can be life-changing. Until next time, keep questioning everything and keep getting better faster. Thanks for making time today, Kim.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Thanks
All
everybody
right.
for listening.
See you on the next interview.